A makeup artist from Salmon Arm, BC, worked with her sports-playing son to sign a contract with the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. It comes from CBC's Jacqueline Jeleno.
What started as a mother-son passion project in a basement in Salmon Arm has made it to the CFL. Missy McIntosh is the founder of Miss Mac Cosmetics, and now she's leaving her mark on Canadian football with a new product for players and fans. A non-toxic eye black that can be used as face paint and makeup.
I actually designed it with my son, who is now 14 and a half, out of a passion project after losing my dad. I wouldn't actually let Evan wear eye black for many years because I knew the ingredients that were in them. And during the sort of grieving process, I was like, hey, Evan, do you want to create an eye black? Essentially, it's like a black dense lipstick. We have the manufacturing. And he's like, yeah, let's do it.
Eye black is worn on players' cheeks to prevent eye glare from the sun or stadium lights.
So, you can, if the fly ball's coming in, you can, track the ball better.
Since she already had the resources available to create an eye black, Missy and her son, Evan, got to work.
And we've had massive requests for purples.
After creating a sun-reflecting product that Evan and his teammates liked, they also created a sweat-proof glitter that sticks to the eye black for a bit of added sparkle. The various colors can be used as eye black, face paint, and makeup. Evan and his teammates use the glitter when they want an edge.
There's a tradition, kind of.
Together, Evan and his mom presented the product on Dragon's Den and later caught the eye of sporting goods stores and professional athletes and teams, including the Winnipeg Blue Bombers.
It's now just added to the game, and this product is something now for the players that they can use as well.
Wade Miller, president of the Blue Bombers, says in addition to the eye black's practical use, it's become a personal statement, with players using it like war paint to feel confident on the field and fans using it to connect with the athletes.
It's kind of made it their own, and it's their own unique look. And it may be all over their face, or it may be only on one side under one eye.
Now, Miss Mac has signed the first ever partnership between a cosmetics company and the CFL. The product is already being worn by CFL players, but now, packaged in the Grit Kit, it will be unveiled to fans by the Winnipeg Blue Bombers at the Grey Cup Festival in November. Jacqueline Jeleno, CBC News, Salmon Arm.
With record heat and wildfires becoming more frequent, people are feeling a different kind of stress. It's called climate anxiety. A new national study finds nearly 1 million Canadians feel it so strongly that it's starting to affect their sleep and focus. Researchers say it's most common among young people, women, and northern communities. And for a closer look, we've reached Sarah Kennell. She's the Vice President of Policy Partnerships and Advancement at the Canadian Mental Health Association. I spoke with her this morning at 6.
Good morning.
So to start off, can you just tell us a bit about what climate anxiety actually is and how you define it?
Yeah, climate change is a term that we use to describe the feelings that we experience in relation to climate change. It isn't a clinical diagnosis, but it's real for many people. As we've seen through this research, certain populations are particularly at risk of experiencing it. It can relate to feelings of nervousness, fear, worry, sometimes despair, and occur among people who have either witnessed or experienced a climate-related disaster themselves personally, or they've seen it play out in the news or been exposed to it indirectly.
So I think we all, might worry about climate change time to time here and there. But at what point does, worrying about climate change become something more serious and become that, general climate anxiety?
Yeah, it's normal to have, feelings that are in the face of these really major traumatic events. The important thing is that we're recognizing the difference between symptoms that are relatively normal, to mild to moderate levels of, frustration or anger and sadness. And then when they start to interrupt our day-to-day activities, that's when we know we have a more serious problem. So if you're experiencing disruptions in sleep, loss of social connection, loss of appetite, really reluctance to engage in regular day-to-day activities through work or school, overwhelming feelings of sadness or anger or frustration, those can really start to become more serious, and that's when you should reach out for help.
So tell me a little bit more. Like you're saying, they're just impacting their day-to-day lives, but how do climate worries actually impact big life choices that some people are making? Like say having kids or where to live.
Yeah, we're just starting to understand the connection between climate change and how it influences those big life decisions here in Canada. We know that a study in 2023 found that 40% of people between the ages of 16 and 25 reported hesitation about having kids due to climate change. That's a significant portion of the population. And we know also that that same age group feels a high level of stress because of economic uncertainty and housing affordability. So these things are all connected. The research is disparate across the country, but we know increasingly that young people are really making decisions around where to live based on climate change and trends because the increased frequency of climate-related disasters, whether they be wildfires or the smoke that enters more urban environments, floods, droughts, heat waves, these are all factoring increasingly into where we live in this country.
So what can people do to ease the stress of worrying about climate change?
Yeah, there are many things that we can do to build our resiliency in the face of climate change. And unfortunately, we know that this is something that we'll have to increasingly be prepared for as years go on. And we see these disasters increasingly occur across the country. So there are things that we can do that include being prepared. That really helps us regain a sense of control and purpose. So having a plan in your household about what to do if and when a disaster strikes. Staying informed of what's happening in your community, having access to evidence-based information is really important, but also ensuring that we're taking breaks from social media and the news when it becomes a little bit too much to handle. Talking about it in community and giving back through volunteer work is another great way for us to reduce some of the potentially negative emotions that come with climate change and climate anxiety. So volunteering for your local environmental center or climate justice initiative are great ways to reconnect with community and help manage some of those feelings. Connecting with nature. We're so lucky in Canada to have access to the outdoor space and green space that we do. That can be a really important way for us to really value the environment that we do have and learn how to protect and support it. And then, of course, reaching out for support when emotions become more serious in nature.
I know outside of the home too, that you go about in the world, and it could be tougher to control than when you're at home or with your family. So, what about schools or workplaces? What can they do to support people who are struggling with climate anxiety?
Yeah, we spend so much time at school and work, and it's important for us to be supported in those spaces as we navigate some of these feelings. So for younger kids, research out of the UK showed us that kids aged 7 to 11 are more worried about climate change than they are their homework. So this is really impacting younger kids in particular. Ensuring that we provide them with accurate information that we know, recognize, and acknowledge that their feelings are real and that it's okay to talk about them. For older kids, ensuring that they have access to supports and information that really ensures that they are aware and informed of what's going on, creating space to normalize negative feelings around frustration, anger, and sadness. And then for workplaces, really ensuring that we're creating psychologically healthy environments through access to mental health supports, employee assistance programs, those types of things, and coming together as a workplace to give back to community.
Well, Sarah, thank you for your time this morning. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
That's Sarah Kennell. She's Vice President of Policy Partnerships and Advancement at the Canadian Mental Health Association.
But don't let flu season or any other number of ailments catch you off guard. Getting sick while traveling really kills the fun, and it also can be dangerous. For some expert advice on our medical column today, Dr. Anna Banerji joins us via Zoom. She is a pediatric infectious disease specialist at the University of Toronto's Temerty Faculty of Medicine. Hi there.
Hi.
So as a tropical disease specialist, which you are, what kinds of cases do you see most often?
I see lots of diarrhea, rashes, parasites. I see people coming back with fevers, and it could be something like a cold or COVID, all the way to malaria, dengue, typhoid. So I see some seriously ill people as well.
So, given all of that, such a big list and range, what would you say around what common vaccines people might consider looking into before they head off to travel?
Well, I think it's really important to get your primary series up to date, including measles, mumps, rubella, chicken pox, and then diphtheria, tetanus, pertussis, polio. So just to make sure that that is up to date. Then people can consider COVID and influenza, depending on where they're going to, because you may be in crowded places when you're traveling. I think that every adult or every person should have hepatitis B vaccine. And so that's something to consider, not just for the trip, but just for life. And also, hepatitis A vaccine is a good vaccine to have. One dose now and a booster dose can give you lifelong immunity. So those are really good vaccines to consider. And then typhoid, if you're going to rural areas for a couple of weeks, you're going to be exposed to contaminated water. That's something that to consider. Now, then there's a whole series of vaccines if you're going to under-resourced parts of the world, or you're traveling for a long time, or you're going to certain areas, like, for example, Japanese bee encephalitis, rabies, yellow fever. And for a lot of those vaccines, you really should go to a travel clinic and get good advice.
How else can people protect themselves from getting sick while traveling? What else would you suggest people think about?
I think one of the most important things is to get travel insurance, because if you get sick and you need to be medevaced out, it can be extremely expensive. So that's something I would recommend for everyone. And so you think again, where are you going to? If you're traveling to a malarious area, you need malaria prophylaxis. And so what other illnesses are there? For example, mosquito-borne diseases, chikungunya, dengue, Zika. So you need really good insect repellent. It's important that you have boiled water or bottled water. Be careful with the ice, because unless you know where the source is, that it's actually bottled water or boiled water or filtered water. Avoid street food unless you know it's been boiling hot, because you don't want to eat anything that's been sitting around for a long time. Avoid any fruits or vegetables that you can't take off the skin. Don't walk barefooted in places where there are cats and dogs and on the beach, or where there's poor sanitation. And don't swim in freshwater lakes in places like Africa and parts of Asia and South America.
Research before you go is what I'm hearing, to try to
That's right.
understand all these things, because they're so specific to region. If you're traveling and think something is wrong, if something's, gone wrong, what do you suggest people do?
It depends on how sick they are. If it's just a cold, then they then do some supportive care. But if you have a fever in a malarious area, you need to go right away to get medical help. Or you have, again, persistent fever, recurrent vomiting, diarrhea. You're becoming dehydrated. You have lethargy, of blood in your stools. Anything like that, you need to have immediate help.
Just before you go this morning, because there's so much advice here, is there a checklist? Like what makes the top things on your checklist to bring on a trip just in case?
Well, again, travel insurance, but insect repellent, sunscreen, hats, sunglasses, and then your prescription medications. You can bring things like ibuprofen, Advil, Tylenol, antihistamines. You may bring Gravol, Imodium, those kinds of things. A lot of these things you can buy overseas, but you may want to have it in your little kit.
And just before you go this morning, I do have one more question I wanted to add. I'm wondering if you're seeing more of this or not. We certainly have been reporting on all kinds of different diseases and then emerging diseases in the world. In your own practice, are you seeing more people that are getting sick when they're traveling?
We're still seeing a lot of people getting sick with all kinds of things. What I am seeing that gets now under-recognized is we're seeing a lot of people coming back with COVID. And so, again, you may want to get your COVID booster, because when you're in a closed place like an airport or a plane, and there are viruses circulating, you're at risk. So people don't want to think about it anymore, but it's still out there.
Thanks very much for the medical column this week. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you.
That's Dr. Anna Banerji. She's a pediatric infectious disease specialist at the University of Toronto's Temetry Faculty of Medicine. She was speaking with CBC's Marcy Markusa yesterday. Well, next here on Information Radio, tech companies and investors are pouring billions into building massive AI data centers. A number of those are popping up across Canada, mainly in Ontario. There's none in Manitoba yet, but these centers come with a significant environmental footprint, and it's raising concerns. Regulation to protect energy and water resources is lagging behind. And Francis Sims covers tech issues for us. And good morning to you.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
So why are we seeing this level of investment in data centers right now?
It all comes down to artificial intelligence. So these tech companies have promised investors that if you give me only $1 billion, I will build this giant data center for you. And inside that data center really are just racks of computers, no different than the computers you have at home, maybe a little fancier and higher power. And what they say is that if you give me all this money and I build this giant data center, then we're going to be the first company to create what we call super intelligence. And super intelligence is that moment that these tech companies have promised where AI will become smarter than humans in every single way. And what that means is that it'll do things like solve cancer, solve climate change, and make these investors gajillions of dollars. And so they've convinced the investors that the best way to do it is to jam as many computers in these warehouses for as much money as possible. And they're doing it all over the world, and they've run out of space in the United States, which is why they're knocking on our door.
And what are we like? How much money are we talking about here? Like, how expensive are these data centers to build?
Yeah, so your computer at home maybe is like $500 to $2,000 if you buy a laptop, right? Depending on which kind you buy, maybe a little more, maybe a little less. A traditional server or computer in a data center might be about $20,000, so 10 times that. And that would be the kind of server that you'd run Netflix off of, or maybe, you'd have your Google Photos on there, or Amazon Photos, or your files. That's traditionally what it's cost. The AI servers, though, have these high-end processors. Actually have these gaming processing units that, gamers have been using for a while, but really high-end. Those things cost or start at $200,000.
Wow.
And so you can imagine like racks of these things, thousands of them. Well, you can get, I know it seems enormous, but you can get to the point where they're spending $1 billion on building a data center. And they predict that there's going to be about $200 billion around the world spent on building these data centers this year alone.
So why Canada for these data centers?
Well, we're going to win the World Series, so they want to be with winners. Yeah. I hope. They're going to, we have power, a lot of power, especially in southern Canada, that's affordable. So in North Virginia, where they have over 40 data centers, the power grid is basically about to fail, right? It's fluctuating. People are getting brownouts, blackouts. Crazy things are happening because there's too much load. And so they're looking to, the neighbors to the north as an option. Also, we have a lot of clean water and cool climate. And the water is important because if you do a ChatGPT email, maybe a small email, and you iterate it a few times, or that first draft of an essay if you're a student, the amount of water, and this is staggering, needed to cool the servers doing that is about half a liter.
Wow.
Right? Because when you do AI, what happens is it's comparing against data points, maybe 1 million data points across many different servers. Those computers, like your computers at home, heat up and they need to be cooled. And so what they traditionally do is they run the water in pipes next to the servers, just like a radiator at home, and it cools those servers down. Half a liter for ChatGPT email, and think about how many of those are being done at the same time.
Wow.
So that's a staggering amount of water. And they like Canada because Canada's cooler. Maybe they can spend less money and water on cooling these data centers if they're doing it in the middle of winter in Winnipeg.
Right. So I know we don't. We don't have any in Manitoba at this point yet. But with all that, we do have lots of water and we do have hydro here. What could that mean for Canadians if it came in the last minute or so here that we've got with you?
Yeah, so what they're promising these communities, and they're knocking on doors in Ontario, all over rural Ontario, because there's nuclear here. Eventually, there will be lots of power in Winnipeg, in Manitoba, we hope. What that means is they're promising jobs, right? It's about 1,000 people they'll hire to build the data center, and then they'll employ between 60 and 80 people on an ongoing basis. So if you're a small rural community, that could be a big boon. But there's a cost long term that they're not talking about, and that's what governments need to think about. In Ontario, they're passing a new bill that says we need to look at every project seriously across the environment, the economy, what the impact is to the community. And I think we're going to start to see that across the country as these people knock on everybody's door.
Well, Francis, thanks for your time this morning. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
That is Francis Sims. He's an associate dean of the Faculty of Applied Sciences and Technology at Humber Polytechnic. The Mama Wichita Center is collecting Halloween candy donations. It's to help provide a fun and safe Halloween for youth and families from the North End neighborhood. The center is accepting all kinds of candy donations until Halloween Day. And Christina Liesk is a coordinator at the Mama Wichita Center. Good morning to you.
Hello, good morning.
So tell us a little bit about this donation drive and how it works.
So we're collecting donations from the community around Turtle Island Community Center. We're asking other businesses around there, private-owned businesses, banks, and everybody, or even if someone wants to come drop it off. We do have a haunted house vibes.
Cool.
So families will come into like different rooms. Every room has a different theme for a haunted house. Last year we had a clown theme in one room. In the other room we had a zombie. The other room we had a witch theme. And in the gym we have a DJ going with nice songs, and then we have a space for families to sit down and warm up before they actually go for walks around the neighborhood too.
What was it like to be there to see the families take part in this? What did it mean to those families?
It is amazing because we had last year. It was a pretty nice weather outside, so we had about 700 people came by.
Wow.
And it was nice and packed. The family loved it. We had hot chocolate going too, so it was a nice seeing everybody just warming up before they actually went to go to other places, and just seeing a bunch of like the other kids coming in costumes and just having them being so amazed about like the decorations and things. It makes it fun for them.
So I'm trying to do the math in my head. So if you say you get 700 people this year, that's a lot of candy. You need.
Yeah.
Have you had enough in past years to make sure everyone gets some?
We tried our best. I would say we did ask everybody. Everybody from different sources likes to come donate to Turtle Island Community Centers, especially like No Frills. They helped a lot. Safeway helps a lot because they know the families in the neighborhood, and they know Mama Way loves to help with the donation drives too.
Okay. So in terms of how people can get the candy, what they can donate, what you're accepting, what are the details around that?
So at 445, you could donate at 445 King between Monday and Friday at 8:30 till 4. And after 4 o'clock, you could donate it at 510 King Street, which is the Turtle Island Community Center. And you could donate it until 8 o'clock.
Okay. And then Christina, I don't want to put you on the spot. Did you grow up in the North End yourself?
I did live there for a little bit. Yeah.
Okay. How is like trick or treating in the North End changed? I don't know if you were since you were a kid to now. Have you noticed any change?
Yes, especially with the Halloween, like the safe Halloween is way safer, and plus you see just a lot of like the community come together. There's when I was like a kid, there wasn't many houses like going down. We always had to go to a different community, so we always had to take buses. But one of my favorite things is just going straight to Turtle Island and then walking with my family somewhere. So it's a good change.
Well, Christina, all the best with the donation drive, and hope you have a lot of fun on Halloween. Thanks for chatting with us this morning.
Okay, thank you.
Christina Liesk is a coordinator at the Mama Wichita Center. The center is collecting Halloween candy donations. And as a reminder, so their drop-off location is their site at 445 King Street, Monday to Friday from 8:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. And if people can't drop off, they can get it picked up as well. So to arrange a pickup, you can pull out your pen here. So this is Christina's number. If you want to call, I'll say it twice here for you. So 204-963-5998. I'll say it one more time for you here if you are thinking of donating. 204-963-5998. A local fisherman at the Forks caught a sturgeon measuring 1.3 meters long. The video garnered over 200,000 views on social media. And yesterday, on Up to Speed, Corwin Janicek shared what that moment was like with CBC's Chloe Friesen.
So I was at the Forks, and I decided to throw a line in and get some food, and we waited hours and hours and hours with no bites, and then finally something bit my rod, and this monster was on the end of it, and it took me about 10 to 15 minutes to reel in. It was a crazy fight.
That was Corwin Janicek, the angler who caught the sturgeon. He did return it back to the river. The social media post has been flooded with questions about what this means for the health of our rivers and more. And Derek Craker is the fisheries manager with the province of Manitoba. Good morning to you, Derek.
Good morning, Corey.
So what was it like when you first heard that someone caught a sturgeon in the Red River, here in Winnipeg by the Forks?
Oh, I was smiling ear to ear. This is just great news. Sturgeon are been present in the Red River for quite some time, but they're not always encountered by anglers. So to see, first of all, someone so excited to catch it, and then of course a passerby understanding how interesting it was to take that recording, and then have so many people comment on it, I thought was great. So people definitely are interested in sturgeon, and it's just great to see people sharing that wonderful moment with Corwin.
And how rare is it to find a sturgeon in the red, but not even just a sturgeon, but a sturgeon that's that big, 1.3 meters long?
It's actually not that rare. There's quite a few sturgeon in the Red River. I know that there was some comment that they might be extirpated or extinct, but that's not the case. The sturgeon have been there, but there have been rare over the past number of years, but they're increasing. We know from the Master Angler program that people are catching more and more sturgeon in the Red River every year. There's also a tagging program done by the federal fisheries folks who've been watching sturgeon passing through the city of Winnipeg quite regularly. So it's not uncommon for them to be there. The size is also not necessarily uncommon. That's a mature size sturgeon. So they do get bigger than that, but that's sort of an average size for an adult. So this was just a great news story.
So in terms of the history of the species, though, as you said, the population has ebbed and flowed. So tell me a little bit about the history of the sturgeon in the Red River and how it's kind of dwindled but recovered as well.
Yeah, for sure. So the lake sturgeon across Manitoba, including the Red River, were overharvested over 100 years ago. So that's before 1920. The population's already crashed because of overharvest. And it's unfortunate because sturgeon have a slightly different life history than other fishes. They grow large sizes, but they also take a long time to reach maturity. So when people harvested them 100 years ago, they didn't realize that the harvest of those really large fish was going to have a long-term impact. So flash forward now literally over 100 years, and people now know to replace and return those large fish back to the river because that's the breeding segment of the population. And that's what's causing the recovery of sturgeon in the Red River and other places in Manitoba, is that we now know that if we can protect those large female fish, that it'll help generate more sturgeon for future populations. And we're seeing that in the last 10 to 15 years. We've seen many more people catching sturgeon on the Red River, which is again just such a great news story.
Right. It kind of blew me away to hear the fact. So for female sturgeon, it's around 25 years old when they can actually start spawning, and for males, it's about 17. So that's a long time if you catch it, and that can really throw things off if you catch a sturgeon that's younger than that. So
yeah, that's right. And in fact, sturgeon, the female sturgeon begin to reproduce at age 25, and after that, they only spawn every 5 to 7 years.
Oh, wow.
So you can see how the life history of this fish is different than other fishes, and that's why overharvest of the largest individuals was what really caused the problem over 100 years ago. That was the main cause for the population decline at that time. But we've seen now steady recovery as we've understood to make sure we return those large fish back to the water.
Does this tell us anything about the health of our rivers themselves as well, like the water too? The fact that the sturgeon population has recovered so well.
Right. Well, sturgeon are actually quite robust. They can tolerate quite a variety of water quality conditions and temperatures. I mean, to be a fish in Manitoba, you got to be tough because we have very warm summers and very cold winters. So sturgeon are a fish that are tolerant of a variety of water quality conditions. What it tells us about the fish community is that it's returning to a normal or a very diverse fish community. It's good to have sturgeon, a lot of the suckers and catfish. Of course, Manitoba's famous walleye and our channel catfish are habitants of the Red River. So it just demonstrates that when we have a healthy ecosystem of a variety of fishes, it benefits all of us.
And just for kind of news you can use, what are people supposed to do if they do catch a sturgeon? I know in this case they returned it legally. Like, what is the move if you catch a sturgeon?
Yeah, for sure. If people are angling, let's say in the Red River in Winnipeg, which again we have this fantastic fishery right inside the city of Winnipeg, be prepared to catch a fish this size. So if you're fishing, make sure you're ready with tools and devices to remove the hook. Have a place where you can land the fish safely, where it's not on sharp rocks and so forth, and then try to get the fish back in the water as reasonably quickly as possible. We try to tell people, think about a minute. So if you are thinking you might catch a large fish, have your pliers ready, have your gloves ready, have your net ready, have a place to land the fish. And so when you take that fish out of the water, try to remove the hook. If you'd like to take a picture, in this case, it's great that Corin did it. It's a great catch. Take that picture, but then try to get that fish back into the water as quickly as possible. Keeping in mind that all fish have a slime layer. And so you typically want to keep that slime layer on the fish. So trying not to handle it too much is beneficial. But again, the good news is that sturgeon are quite robust when it comes to catch and release fishing. We've had some studies done in Manitoba that shows they're very, very tolerant of catch and release fishing. So this fish will likely be just fine that was released. And it's great. Again, a great news story. And we just encourage people to enjoy this fish and then return them back to the water as soon as possible after catching. But they can certainly take that picture and celebrate with their friends.
And are they still technically endangered or no? So what's their official status right now in Manitoba?
Right, they don't have any official status. We know that that the federal CSIC has recommended a listing for them, but in Manitoba, we've seen their numbers improving almost everywhere we studied them. So it's interesting to see whether we get to a place where designation is required. Right now, in terms of the populations increasing in so many places, in my opinion, it doesn't seem like that would be the necessary step because we're in so much better shape than we were even 20 years ago. So, our populations are improving dramatically. So that's where we stand with that.
You ever caught a sturgeon yourself?
I have caught a sturgeon myself. It's extremely exciting, and I encourage everyone to go for it.
How big was it? Bigger than this one or smaller? Do you remember?
Mine was smaller. I've caught a few that were smaller than this one. So again, Corwin's got me beat.
And just before I let you go here, this is a good sign, obviously, for the sturgeons. Other fish populations, are they experiencing a similar growth, or is this just a sturgeon thing?
I'd like to say that Manitoba has very well managed fisheries across the province. We're really, really fortunate with the numbers of lakes and rivers that we have and the varieties of fisheries we have, both warm water species and cold water species. Manitoba really is blessed with a lot of great fishing, and we've probably never been in a better place with our fish populations, and our regulations, both on our recreational side and our commercial fisheries, are meant for that long-term sustainability. And Manitobans can expect good fishing for all the different fish species, no matter where they are.
Well, Derek, thank you for your time this morning. All the best.
You're welcome. Thanks.
Derek Craker is the fisheries manager at the government of Manitoba. Well, next on Information Radio, Manitoba has one of the lowest numbers of family physicians per capita in Canada, and that's according to Doctors Manitoba. To try and change that, the province has placed ads in several U.S. states in hopes that it makes practicing here more attractive, and perhaps it's working. Earlier this week, the province said 6 doctors have been recruited to move to Manitoba from the U.S., and 27 other physicians from the U.S. are currently in the recruitment process. Dr. Allison Carlton is a family physician from Iowa who moved to Winnipegosis in 2017. She's been involved in the promotional campaign, and she spoke with us earlier via Zoom.
So tell me a bit about your journey. Why did you choose to come to Canada to practice medicine?
I was in practice in Iowa, as you said, and basically financially our ends were not meeting. And so we decided we needed to do something different. I was trying things like doing a little locums down there. We had extended hours. We reached out to niche markets like the LGBTQ population. and still working incredible hours and having difficulty financially. So we knew we needed a different model because I like cold better than heat, I guess, is mainly why we looked north instead of south. Plus, it was closer to family we were going to be leaving in Iowa. So we looked to come to Canada for that reason. And also, of course, this was right after Trump got elected. And we knew that things were changing in our country. And being a gay couple, we were concerned about that, plus just the general way things were changing.
What's it been like for you at your practice since coming to Manitoba and working here?
We started looking in this area because we like the prairies. Actually, it was combined with a camping trip because we were planning on a canoe trip in northern Minnesota, and we wanted to practice our techniques for camping in colder weather. So we came up here in June of 2017 and did get some cold, rainy weather in the Riding Mountain, and found that we were adequately prepared. But also at that time, we needed to look at jobs. We needed a job offer to complete coming to Canada. We also looked at several different places. We worked with Prairie Mountain Health. They were the most eager to work with us. When we got to Winnipeg, it had been cold and rainy prior, and we got here and it was like, whoa, the sun was shining, the grass was green, all the gardens were perfectly manicured, it seemed like. And it was just a beautiful place. My concern was, would I have enough business, because it's a small, very small community, but it has quite a large catchment area. And I need not be worried. I was assured I wouldn't need to be worried, but now that I've been here for almost 8 years, I can say I am not worried about the volume of patients with everyone having. Yeah, everyone has insurance. Everyone has insurance, and so there's plenty of patients. It used to be in the States, if a patient left, you kind of felt bad, but around here it's like makes room for another one, and you get paid really good here too.
So I was going to lean into that, the major differences, about practicing medicine in Manitoba, in Canada, versus in the States. There must be many, given that our systems function so differently.
In the States, people who you want to have in your practice are people with insurance. When you bill an insurance company in the States, they always dock your billings. It doesn't matter what you bill. They only pay what they're going to pay. And they take forever to do it. You maybe have your money in 3 months. Well, in Manitoba, we have Doctors Manitoba negotiating with the government for contract fees, which then we all agree on. And when you bill those, you get that money in the bank 2 weeks later. When we were in the States, it was difficult. And we came here, we were able to buy then 80 acres of land within 2 years and build a house. And that's all paid for now. And also I went through breast cancer treatment here. And if I had done that in the States, I would have gone bankrupt.
What challenges are there, if any, working in a doctor in the public system here in Canada versus where you're working in the States? Are there any downsides or things that maybe were seen as challenges?
The biggest challenge for me coming here to a small town is not knowing always where I need to get the services that I need for my patients. For instance, if a patient needs, say, a Holter monitor or a 24-hour blood pressure monitor, or sleep studies, or just these odd things that patients need from time to time, knowing how to get those. Fortunately, I've had good physicians in Dauphin who've been able to, I would call them and ask them questions and be able to bounce things off of them, because I am up here by myself and I'm not worried about that. I like being by myself because there's advantages when it comes to who's on call and who's taking the next admission. Well, it's me, and that's okay. Of course, a secondary to that is how long do they have to wait? And probably my biggest frustration here is that patients expect that we're all the doctors in Manitoba are connected, and I can see the notes when they go down to Dauphin walk-in clinic when I'm not open, and they are very frustrated that I can't see those notes. And I hear this many times a week.
Are you
And so the
frustrated? Just to interject, are you frustrated you can't see those notes? Like, how much would that help you as a physician in this province as they move toward that long-standing promise of, better interconnectivity and digital records and such?
Oh, it's incredibly frustrating. I have a patient who wants me to refill some medications, and they said they got them 3 months ago. And I'm like, okay, I need some documentation why you were giving these. And it turns out, well, it was actually a year ago, and it wasn't the same story. And so those kinds of things happen. And currently, I'm having a lot of trouble, and this may be only me, but I don't know, with the e-chart not showing the documents when I go to find reports. It's just a blank screen, and that's really, really frustrating because that hampers my work.
Let me ask you, go back to where we started. Manitoba this week with the numbers, 6 new doctors from the U.S. Among 33 physicians coming. What would you say is needed to convince more doctors from the United States to think about coming to Manitoba?
They don't see that we need them, and they don't understand that they can kind of make their niche practice here. I've seen that since I came, and the need too. Like when we first started looking, we were like, okay, I'll do whatever I need to for them to take me. And I updated all of my, advanced life supports and all those kinds of things. I was like, whatever I have to do, but it really didn't come down to that. It came down more to what did I want? If we could get that message out there, that they would flock up here.
Would you ever consider going back to practice in the U.S.?
No. In fact, Marcy, my wife and I dropped our U.S. citizenship last summer, and that was that was just a high moment for us. And so we are fully Canadian, and I have family down in the States now, and they understand that it's not safe for me to be down there as a gay woman. And and I just can't wait to get my daughter and my wife's daughter to see the light and come on up too.
Thank you so much, Dr. Carlton, for being with us this morning and sharing your journey. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
It's Dr. Alison Carlton. She's a family doctor in Winnipeg, Manitoba. She spoke to Marcy Markusa earlier this week. 4 out of 5 teens in Canada aren't getting enough physical activity. That's according to new data from Statistics Canada. The latest numbers show that from 2022 to 2024, only 21% of youth were meeting physical activity requirements. That's compared to 36% from 2018 to 2019. And the age group with the most significant declines were youth between 12 and 17 years old. So what's going on? Some say the culprit, maybe social media. CBC's Jennifer Dosso headed to Grant Park High School yesterday, where she asked students how they stay active.
Matthew Brimble.
How much physical activity would you say you get every week?
Like 1,000,000,000%. I'm always moving. I'm always active. I do swimming. I do basically every sport you can think of.
My name is Caitlin Schmidt. Well, I don't really count like the hours. I walk like a lot. So like I usually get like 10,000 steps a day, or I try to. And then obviously like gym and stuff like that. But yeah, other than that, not much.
My name is Manuela Oxman. Not a lot. I'd say like 5 hours.
There's a new study that found that kids aged 12 to 17 don't get as much physical activity anymore. Is that surprising to you?
That's not very surprising. With the new age of technology and things, kids are less incentivized to move to be able to do what they want because the internet is giving them all those possibilities just on their phone.
I think that we are on our phones a little too much, and that that sometimes instead of moving our bodies, we decide to just go on our phone instead, when we really should be going and moving our bodies more.
And that was Jenna Badasso speaking with students at Grant Park yesterday. Our next guest has been helping people across Canada move their bodies more. Lee Vanderloo is the scientific director at Participaction. Good morning to you.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
You're on Zoom here, and I saw you nodding your head along as those students were talking about why maybe students aren't moving or kids aren't moving as much. So what did you think about what you just heard there?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think, they're right within that age population that we're most concerned about, giving the new statistics. And, they're living it day in and day out. And they provided some really great reasons as to why, their peers or themselves, others of their age, are probably not engaging as much physical activity. And certainly, the omnipresence of screens and digital, not just in how they learn at school, get homework done, but also how they're socializing, how they're choosing to spend their free time. And then, of course, just our day-to-day activities. Physical activity has really been socially engineered out of our day-to-day lives. We no longer require the same amount of energy to accomplish the tasks that we once did. And this is definitely becoming very apparent, and more concerningly so, among kids 12 to 17.
And what do you think about that report? Did you find it surprising, or was it kind of like, this kind of confirms what I already kind of know anecdotally?
I mean, I think the trends have been showing that, as we age, starting from, early childhood all the way up into adolescence, adulthood, and older adulthood, physical activity levels tend to decline. So it's not that surprising, that overall trend, but I think what's most striking is the fact that there was such a significant drop in this 12 to 17 age group. They are now considered the most inactive group or population in Canada, which is definitely something we haven't seen before. And I think what's even more concerning to that is not only has there been a pretty significant population level drop over the last, 4 or 5 years, but that this gap has widened further between boys and girls.
Yeah, I was actually just about to chat about that. So the numbers in the report show 90% of teenage girls aren't as active as boys. So, based on kind of the populations you've worked with, why do you think that is?
Yeah, so a number of reasons come to mind. I mean, first and foremost, from a very young age, oftentimes kids are socialized to engage in different types of activity based on gender. So, it's not that surprising that young boys are encouraged to engage in more rambunctious play, more active play, definitely push more towards certain sports, whereas sometimes girls are encouraged to engage in more quiet play. And I think that's just more of a gendered and social impact that tends to persist across the lifespan, and something we still very much see now. I think there's a lot more attention in terms of male sports, not only in terms of having the availability, appropriate coaching staff, encouragement by family and friends. It's how boys oftentimes engage in social activities, is through sports and physical activity. And also when we look at it in terms of media or sporting events, fandom, it's definitely way more focused on male sports and more male centric. Whereas for girls, we tend to see less of that. And so really understanding that not only is it an equity issue, but it's also a program design issue.
And in terms of, we were kind of talking about social media, and I think a lot of students, that's what they said is the problem. What do you think? How much of a role is it actually social media? You said there's other barriers as
Yeah, I
well,
mean,
like sorts access to sports, but how much of it is actually, can we just put the blame on social media for this?
for sure. I mean, I think it contributes quite significantly. If we think of our 20, we have 24 hours in a day. If we're not sleeping, then we're either moving or being sedentary. And if more time is being spent being sedentary, namely in front of screens, then that limits the amount of time that then is available for, say, sleeping or for getting active. So there's a little bit of a displacement happening. So definitely it is a big contributor, a big culprit. I wouldn't say it's the only issue. I think, the lack of, going outdoors. I think in terms of increased focus on academics, and those core subjects, away from movement, thinking that, having gym class or having opportunities to move is something that, displaces more focused time on seated schoolwork and learning. So I think that's also something to consider. But I think, just fully blaming screens or social media, for example, isn't necessarily the route we want to 100% go down to. Rather, I would encourage taking more of a harm reduction approach. We know screens are here to stay. We can't escape them. And I don't think, we necessarily have to, but we have to find a way to better cohabitate and coexist with them as healthily and responsibly as possible.
So in an ideal world, how much exercise should young people, specifically teens, be getting daily? And when we're talking about exercise, I don't know if that means vigorous or not, but like what should that look like for someone 12 to 17 in a given day?
Absolutely. So, for kids 12 to 17, national recommendations are 60 minutes of moderate to vigorous physical activity per day. So, that's more of that heart pumping physical activity. You're breathing a little bit harder. Maybe you're starting to get a little warmer or sweat. Um, but that can look very different for different individuals, and how you choose to get that activity can be whatever you find enjoyable. So we heard from some of the students previously, some of them are engaging in sports, some of them are just walking. That's great. Like, all movement counts. And so I think we want to move beyond that. If it's not happening in a gym or on a sports field, it doesn't count. We also want to be ensuring that we're getting multiple hours per day of just that light incidental activity, thinking about active transportation, so walking, wheeling, taking our bikes from point A to point B. And then we also want to be mindful of screen time, especially recreational screen time. And so national guidelines there are no more than 2 hours per day for recreational screen use for this age group.
2 hours per day. I imagine if you talked to any teenager, it would be a little bit higher than that. I imagine.
Absolutely. I mean, recent stats show about 10.6 hours per day. So
Yeah.
we're definitely exceeding. And so again, looking for ways that, we can more healthily and responsibly coexist with those, I think will get us a lot further than just trying to take this full-on abstinence approach. And rethinking really, in terms of how we move. What does this mean? It's a complex problem, so it makes sense that it's equally going to require a complex solution to address multiple partners. And definitely, children and youth should be included in terms of, determining what's the best ways that they want to move their body, what they think would be helpful, and what measures can be put in place to help support, or mitigate the amount of screen time, especially from a social media perspective, only because with that comes a number of other exposures that we have less control over.
Oh, we'll leave it there. Thanks so much for your time this morning.
Thanks so much for having me. Take care.
That's Lee Vanderloo. She's the scientific director at Participaction.